Today on What's Happening at Work podcast, we're speaking to Randy Haveson. One of the things we're talking about is the feeling of worthlessness that happens at work. What happens when people don't feel they are valued at work? And this is something that I have taught in many workshops. I will have people and ask, how many of you feel valued at work? And we would get a show of hands of about 5% of the room. On a good day, we would get 20% of the room who put their hand up and say, yes, I feel valued at work. This is very important. And in my upcoming book, Cracking the Code on Your Resilience, which will be launched on August 12th, 2026, I am going to be sharing the resilience anchors, how we can crack the code on resilience. And I'm going deeper into how these things like value, hope, faith, these are the anchors that humans were defined upon. And we've moved so far away from that, especially in the workplaces, because you become a cog in the system. And if you're in a government organization or you're a big unionized organization with all the bureaucracy, you just become a number and you start to disconnect from yourself and you lose that sense of who you are, your values, your hope, your faith. You start disconnecting from these little pieces, and that has a profound effect on our ability to stay well, to stay thriving. And it's behind a lot of the burnout and mental health decline that we're seeing in the workplaces. So stay tuned for this episode. It's coming up. It'll be released later in July. If you follow our podcast, we've had some really good topics before. You can go there to find it, or stay tuned for this topic. It's coming up and we're going to break into these habits, these incidents, these issues, and talk about how we can crack the code on your resilience. I look forward to sharing more with you, and we'll see you. And please stay tuned for another episode of the podcast. Joyce Odidison here, and joyceodidison.com is another place where you can find more on the podcast. Does your job affect your sense of self-worth? Do you know and still believe in who you are and your self-worth after a long day at work? Welcome to What's Happening at Work podcast. My name is Joyce Odidison, and today I am speaking to one of our guests. Our guest today is Randy Haveson, and Randy has founded Worth at Work. He's a speaker, he's an author, he's a workplace transformational leader who helps organizations address burnout, retention, confidence, and service excellence. So we're going to start the conversation today to ask that question: what happens when people know their worth at work? Randy, welcome to What's Happening at Work podcast. I'm so excited for our conversation today.
I am excited too. Thank you for inviting me. I'm really happy to be here.
All right. So let's jump into it for our guests watching. Randy, I want you to start by answering the question: what got you? What's your story? What got you to recognize the elements that were depleting people's self-worth at work? And is there anything in your story that got you to this point where you have created this program?
Oh, absolutely. I've had such an amazing journey, and what happened to begin Worth at Work, have been a speaker and talking about self-esteem, self-worth, self-confidence, all of those things to help people feel better about who they are and where they fit in the world. You know, we have a society that tends to reinforce ego rather than self-esteem. So my work is to help people realize that who you are really has nothing to do with a salary or a car, a number on a scale, a zip code. It's about who you are on the inside. So that's my work. That's what I want to teach people. And a while back, I had the amazing fortune to work at the flagship resort of Disney World at the Grand Floridian Resort. And I was the theme doorman. So I was the one who would welcome guests to the resort. I would work with my fellow cast members. I would cry with the guests as they were leaving. And my goal was to provide that magical service for the guest, for every single one of them, to see who they were and to see what I could do to give them that extra magic. And I noticed that my fellow cast members didn't always do that. And they would come to work depleted. They would come to work And they would sit in the break room before their shift and eat a Snickers bar and have a energy
Mm,
drink.
mm.
And then halfway through their shift, they're just dragging through. And I realized that my self-esteem work can correlate to the workplace.
Mhm,
And I've been at a lot of hotels, very nice
mhm.
hotels, and I know the difference between, "Hi, welcome to the hotel. My name is
Yeah,
Randy. Can I help you today?"
yeah.
And that genuine service. So I got together with the woman that she's been my assistant for years, and
Mhm.
she has a lot of experience too, working with a lot of people. And I said, let's write a book, taking my material and putting it in a workplace scenario and teaching people that if you take better care of yourself and if leaders and managers encourage their employees to take better care of themselves, there's going to be better retention numbers, better morale, better
Mhm,
customer service
mhm.
support. It translates across every metric. When people feel good about who they are, it comes across in the workplace.
That is 100% true. And I understand that from a perspective of a conflict analyst where I go in and people are in conflict, they're fighting, they're not getting along, they're
Yeah,
not getting along with their boss, they hate their workplaces. And underneath, you find that people are truly burnt out, they lack hope, they lack faith, they have that sense. Lack that sense of who they are. They're just showing
mhm,
up at work. Life is completely managing them the other way around. So that is so
exactly.
important. What does burnout look like in the service industry? And I know you talk about the service industry where many people in service roles are expected to keep giving. They serve customers,
Mhm.
clients, guests, patients, students, leaders, and teams. What happens when people constantly serve others but not replenish themselves?
Beautiful question. One of the theories that I came up with is the theory of the energy ball.
Hmm.
All of us have an energy ball and it grows and it depletes depending on how we're taking care of ourselves and what's coming in from the outside world.
Mm-hmm.
So by taking care of ourselves physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, when we do those things to fill ourselves up, we come to work with a beach ball filled with energy. If we're not doing those things, then we come with a shot put and it's
Yes.
heavy and it's small and we can barely get through the day. And
Mm-hmm.
that's when everything becomes mechanical. So the
Yes.
goal is to fill up that energy ball because every interaction is going to take some of your energy. So
Mm-hmm.
during your breaks, are you drinking water? Are you taking time to relax? Are you having a healthy meal rather than a Snickers bar? What
Mm-hmm.
are you doing to replenish? Are you listening to soft music and kind of meditative? Or are
Mm-hmm.
you doing the death scroll on your phone?
Mm-hmm.
So all of these things take your energy away or give you energy. So it's
Mm-hmm.
really important to be aware of where you are when you start your shift.
Yes, 100%. And you talk about the individual. And what about the leaders in organization? Because leaders are doing the same thing. They come in, they eat a chocolate bar, they go out and they have a drink. And so we're not saying that you cannot enjoy your life and have some stuff once in a
Mhm.
while, but when you make it a habit, and as a leader, when you have people who are closest to your customer and clients, what do you need to do? What are you often missing that can affect the customer retention, can actually affect your service that sometimes leaders miss? What do you say to leaders out there?
Here's the tough one. It is so important for leaders to walk the walk and not just talk the talk. You
Mm-hmm.
cannot ask someone to do something that you're not willing to do yourself.
So true.
So it starts at the top. I think it starts with ownership and it
Mm-hmm.
starts with the tone that they set. What do you want to give to your employees? All of the work that I do is important on both sides of the front desk, on both
Yes.
sides of
Yes.
the
Yes. Yes.
table.
Yes.
So it's important for the leaders to guide and do this work themselves. So unfortunately, there are leaders out there who've been doing the same thing for 20 years and they're wondering why they keep getting the same thing. I learned a
Mm-hmm.
long time, if you keep doing what you're doing, you're gonna keep getting what you're getting.
Very
And
true.
yeah.
Very true.
So sometimes it's going to be this newer generation when they get into the leadership positions.
Mm-hmm.
That's when it's really going to start to change. For
Mm-hmm.
now, it's going to take a while. The leaders need to embrace this new way of looking at things and doing things and incorporating these things into their own life so
Mm-hmm.
that they can teach rather than just do this. Because when you do that, you want it to be authentic.
It's true. And something too, Randy, that comes up as you're saying that your work connects with uh, your your confidence, your performance, and it's really how you contribute part of you to the world.
Yeah.
So this is powerful because when people feel unseen at work or unheard or undervalued, how does that impact their ability to serve? How does that person's sense of worth affect the way they perform their job?
Those are the ones that just become robotic and all they want to do is get through their shift. And it's not another guest. It's not an individual. It's just part of the herd, the people who are coming through and the guest feels it.
Oh, yes,
The
of
guest
course.
knows.
Mhm.
I know the difference when there have been times I go up to the hotel front desk to check in and the person's on their phone.
Mhm.
And I want to say, are you kidding me? No. So it's a culture shift that needs to happen here because, my assistant did the research to replace an employee costs an average of $4,500.
Well,
That's
that's cheap.
tough. Yeah, but
Yeah.
for people who are looking at the bottom line, that's a lot of money.
It's cheap in my research for the level that we work with. It's
Mhm.
$10,000.
Wow. Yeah,
Yes.
so you'd think the ownership is gonna want us we're tired of losing that money.
Mhm.
So let's make some shifts, let's make some changes. And
Mhm.
I think there's this evolution that's taking place now. And that's another thing I put in the book, Worth at Work, that COVID has taught us we need connection. That is so important. That authentic connection with each
Mhm.
other. So that just being off in our own little satellites, it doesn't work that
Mhm.
we need to connect with each other. And that's why it's so important at every level to be there. One of the things we talk about, we just did an article about this on our LinkedIn page, that do a 2-minute check-in before the shift.
Mm.
Have everyone there. It's like, hey, how's everyone doing today? People feeling filled up? Who's feeling a little off? Could use a little support today. And so, yeah,
Mm.
my kid's
That's
sick at
beautiful.
home. I'm having a really tough time. So then we're going to
Mhm.
watch this person, make sure they're okay. Hey, you know what? I have lots of energy to give today. I am on top of the world. I'll help whoever needs help. Let me know. So
Mhm.
just that 2-minute check-in can change everything. So there's so many little tips and tricks, but there has to be buy-in from everybody. And it can't
Mhm.
just be front desk. It has to be housekeeping. It has to be food service. It has to
Mhm.
be custodial. My favorite people when I was at the Grand were some of the custodial staff.
Mhm.
They
Oh,
had the
yes.
biggest
Amazing
smiles
people
on their
there. Yes.
faces, and I was like, "How's your day going today?" They're like, "Really well." And I would talk to them, and I noticed a lot of people just walk right by. And it's like, no, everybody has value. And it's
Absolutely.
so important to recognize that. Think about what kind of a world we would have if
Mhm.
everyone honored the people that they were around. And this is something we do, and I actually do this in all my books now. I talk about the philosophy of we over me.
Mhm.
That when I take care of me, I have energy to give to the we. And when the
Yes.
we can expand and be more healthy and better, it's just a
There
better
is
planet
more
to live in.
energy going around. I love that. I love
Mhm,
that. When we look at, because today's show is What's Happening at Work podcast, and we're
mhm.
really talking about the leaders right now. How does lower show up in team culture? Because as part of a team, I come in and I feel just down. I have that low sense of self-worth. Nobody listens to me. I don't have anything to share. I have nothing to contribute to the staff meeting. How does
Mm.
that affect the team? Let's talk a little bit about that.
Oh, that is a total energy drain. That's the person that I call the energy vampire.
Mhm.
Is that they don't have any energy of their own, so they're sucking it out of the people that are around them. So leaders, it is so important for the leaders and managers to get on board with this because until they
Yes,
make a change,
it is.
their team is going to continue. They're going to continue to lose people. They're going, you know, yeah, I'll talk about this. I had a job at a university and I love the students there and the student affairs staff. I love them, but my boss, he said on day one, Randy, the most important thing is visibility, how we look to other people. Like, what? Isn't it the quality of our work? He said it's about perception. And he was so dysfunctional with the way that he treated his staff. He didn't want to work with students anymore. He just kind of sat in his office and did his best to delegate. But before this crew came in, we found out that his entire staff, before we all got there, they quit at the same time. And they all went to the VP of Student Affairs and said, hey, this guy has issues. So they went in, they made sure he had leadership training and all kinds of stuff, but he didn't want to make the change. And we all came in, and it was a really difficult situation to work in, because he was so dysfunctional. We would have to work around him and hope that he didn't notice so we could really do the great work with the students. And as soon as he would get word of it, his insecurities kicked in. And it was just horrible. I was there for 5 months. It's like, I don't want to be here anymore.
You know, you're explaining that ego-driven leader that I wrote about in the book. They are so broken. They have such low resilience, low hope, low faith. They've lost their resilience anchors, and now they have nothing to give, and they become a challenge for those they lead rather than leading people with confidence. So that is very, very important. And my 8th book comes out in next month. August 12th is my book launch date.
Nice.
And the book is focusing on the resilience anchors and how important it is to go back to these resilience anchors that were always there, that we've lost throughout time, and focusing so much on what we can see and not paying attention of what's driving us inside, our inside drivers.
Yes.
And how this affects our ability to manage our own mental health. Many people are struggling with anxiety and because of the thoughts they're having. And those show how we can really start coming back to those resilience anchors to calm our minds, to live a healthy life, to be respectful to others. And so there's a lot of overlap and actual beautiful integration of our work and what we do. Because self-worth is so important. Self-esteem is a very vital, key resilience anchor that without it, you're like a floppy, right? You're just...
Exactly.
It's so important. And I love how your work transitions into that worth, because the self-worth is so beautiful to develop because it reverberates through your team. It affects your leadership capacity, how you live your life, the relationships you have with your team members. It's all intertwined, and we cannot get away from ourselves.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you know what? My newest book, which is probably coming out in a couple months also, and I'm rewriting it because I just love the way it's coming through. Our self-worth is there. It's always been there. It doesn't grow it's like the sun. Even when there are clouds, the sun is still there.
Still shining.
That worth is something we were born with. All of us have self-worth. And the thing is, it's to uncover that self-worth. Step into your self-worth, because until you step into your self-worth, it's hard to build esteem. If you don't have that self-worth piece, everything is going to be driven by ego. And when you're driven by ego, it's all about, how does this look? What are people going to think? Self-esteem is, I'm going to do the best that I can do. But that takes your worth in order to step into your esteem. But otherwise, it's all ego. And we're watching ego take over in our society.
It is so ugly to watch. It is so ugly to watch.
It's like fingernails on a chalkboard. It's for those of us who have an awareness about all this, it's like, how do you allow this to continue?
I know. It's very sad. It's very sad when you see it happen, because you know it's not right, and it causes so much instability. It causes a lot of frustration. It causes that sense of, I don't know what next is going to happen. I just hope we survive it.
Well, here's my theory. It's kind of like an addict has to hit bottom before they can recover. I think our society is hitting a bottom.
Yes.
With realizing that power and greed and money are not the things that really drive and support and enhance a society. So all of that is starting to crumble, and I'm hoping what's going to come through this. And that's why your work is so important, and why my work is so important.
Very
all
important
of us who are doing this. I look at all of us as like going to the cereal shelf in the grocery store. There's so many choices.
Yes.
And it doesn't matter which one, just take something.
Take
And
something.
if you don't like that one, pick something else.
Yes.
If you don't like message, that's great. Find Joyce's.
Exactly.
Find someone else, but be in the cereal aisle. And we support each other to create this better world. That's what we are about, the we over me.
Absolutely. And that's why these conversations are so important, because people are hungry for more. People are feeling the emptiness. And in my work, one of the things we created is the resilience index and the intelligence platform, where people can go and plug in the things they're doing on a daily basis, and it will pull out a resilience index. It will populate a resilience index. So you can have a visual of where your resilience is, where it's coming from, what's drawing on it, and what your opportunities are to build your resilience. Because when we don't know what's happening to us, I think the ignorance of what's happening to people is the worst, the hardest to watch, because you can see that person is going to jump off the deep end and they can't see it.
Yeah.
They can't see it. And that's where many leaders are telling me they're struggling, because they don't know how to articulate what's happening at work. They don't know how to articulate to their employees that what you're doing is dangerous. And they are limited, because I work mostly with organizations that are riddled with union, collective agreements and government infrastructure. So there are policies and procedures, and everything is riddled in bureaucracies. And it's hard, because there's so much you cannot say. You're limited at what you can say as a leader. That's why they're telling me they're valuing having the platform, because it gives people that deep, immersive experience where they go in, they pluck in what they need, what's going on in their life, and then they can have a coaching session to say, I don't like my numbers. And so what are you going to do about it? Which numbers? What did you notice? So you can have a different kind of conversation. Otherwise, you're stuck and don't know what to do. And employees themselves can't help themselves, because they are unaware of what's going on. So many leaders find themselves that they're in that sandwich place where they have to be politically correct in what they say.
Right.
You can't even ask someone if they're using EAP, right?
Really? Wow.
You can't. You cannot send someone to EAP. That's a choice they have to make on their own. It's voluntary. And then, EAP has a minimum, the highest you get is like 35% usage of our organization have it. So that's why we brought in our ways, it's our 9-dimensional framework. So employees can actually measure how well they're doing in these 9 dimensions. And then from there, they have a score, they have a resilience index, and they're asking questions they've never asked before.
That's beautiful.
This is what we want to stimulate with these conversations, is getting people to ask questions they've never asked themselves before, to give them. And as a coach, that's what I strive to do when I sit with a client, is asking you the questions that no one else would ever ask you, because the point in time where we meet in your life, in that little triangle of time, I have an opportunity to contribute to your well-being. And this is where I want to be. And this is why I love having these conversations with you and some of our other guests who are working in this field every day, trying to break into the unconscious. That's where most people are. They're just completely unconscious of what's happening, how they're doing, how they're showing up at work, how they're affecting the team, and what they're doing. Randy, where can someone find you if they're looking for you? Where can they find you?
Best place to find me is through the website worthatwork.com.
Worth at work.
And all the information is there, and I'm happy to help in any way that I can. And when you talk about that disconnected or unaware employee, I would say one thing to do is help them find their purpose.
Yes.
What you're doing here matters, because what you do then supports this person and then supports that person. What you do matters. When people know that what they do matters, it shifts their perspective a little bit. They see things from a different light. So help them find that purpose for why they're not just riveting. They're not just collecting papers. What they're doing is really important for this system to work.
Yes. I
Yeah.
love that because when we show up at work, especially when you're working in the big bureaucracies, you, everything is based on titles and seniorities and stuff. So sometimes you start to feel invisible. You
Mm-hmm.
start to feel like a cog in that wheel, and you're just showing up. And it's so important for, I always say, the leaders, the mid-level leaders, right? They have
Mm-hmm.
such influence over people's well-being, over people's mental health, over how people see themselves, how they show up at
Mm-hmm.
work, and how much they love their job. That's why
Yeah.
it's so important to have great conversations, great interaction with those people you lead, because you never know what moment you might have that conversation that might be that breaking point for them where they're like, oh, wow, I need to change
Yeah.
something.
Mm-hmm.
This just made sense to me. I
Yeah.
never thought about it this way. That
Mhm.
thrills me when someone says that. That means I've done my job.
Exactly. And here's another point of that too. I think this is another place where ego gets in the way.
Mm-hmm.
People are working together here. This person gets promoted. All of
Mm-hmm.
a sudden, ego kicks in. Oh, look at me. I'm a manager now. The self-esteem says, I remember when I was here. I
Mm-hmm.
remember what I wanted from my managers. Now I get to provide that to these people.
Yes. Beautiful. Beautiful. So important. And in the other way around, instead of being that autocratic boss, you now be that boss that brings people together, that's collaborative, that
Mhm,
really drives change, the change that people really need to do their work well and to
mhm.
show up and feel valued. Because many people will tell you after a long shift at work, I hate my job. I wish
Yeah,
I didn't have to do that job. And we want them to say, wow, I gave a lot today, but I feel like I got so much back.
exactly. Yes. And it's important for people to work in order to live rather than live to work. It's
Absolutely.
really important for people to remember to play and to enjoy their time off and
Hmm.
breathe and rest and play and enjoy those other parts of your life. A lot of times
Yes.
people just are so drained that they just sit around rather than
Hmm.
going out and enjoying the quality of their life.
Yes.
So it's really important to take the vacation time, take your break time, do
Yes.
those things to nourish and take care of yourself so that you can show up better at work. But then you leave and yeah, you're exhausted, but you did a good day's work.
Yes. And to
Mhm.
be able to show up well at home too, because there is
Yep,
the other extreme where you show up at work, you give work everything, and then you have nothing left for your family. Because
exactly.
work is supposed to make our lives better. So
Yes.
you're supposed to give at work and get. So once you feel valued at work, that means you're replenishing. You're not giving everything. Maybe it's a
Mhm,
client who say thank you. Maybe it's a customer who say this was a great service. That replenishes you. So you leave work with energy that you can
mhm.
now face your life. Because some people come home from work and they sit in front of the television.
Yeah. Yeah, and
That's
it's yeah, dude, read a book instead.
it,
Dude,
right?
go to
Sit
a
in front of the
movie,
television.
something.
There
Yeah.
are so many things that you can do. You can volunteer. You can be part of an organization. You can do outreach. There's so many things you can.
Yep,
There are lots of children who are need big brothers and big sisters. You can
yep.
volunteer with youth or
Mhm.
or young adults, and there's so many things that we can do to build our self-worth, that it's not
Yep,
just dependent on what's happening at work. That's the
exactly.
challenge. Most
Mhm.
people, their lives are empty outside work, so when they don't get what they need at work, there is such a big void. And I
Exactly.
always say to leaders, we don't know how delicate people are, because sometimes they show up and work is the last straw. What happens here can be the crisis stage for them
Mm,
because there's so much happening or not happening at work. And the
yeah.
other side of burnout, there's burnout, but there's also rusting out. Rusting out is when you have nothing to do, when you're completely bored, right?
Mm,
And then burning out is where you're overwhelmed and you're doing too much and you don't have time to sit back and to enjoy, smell the roses and sip a cup of water and think
mhm,
of the beautiful life that you've had.
mhm.
So we have to speak both to rusting out and burning out because they are both very important. A lot of
Yeah.
people are rusting out and we are thinking it's burnout, but it's actually rust out.
Mhm.
Rusting out is just as bad.
Absolutely. And one of the things that I suggest in my work is when you get out of your car or off the bus or subway or wherever you're going, leave your home life there. I would leave my home life in my car and I would go to work. and I would be there for the people that I was able to interact with. When I would get back to the car on my way back, it's like, oh my God, what an amazing day today. I just had so much fun. It was so great. Oh, wait till I tell my daughter this story. And then I would get in the car and it's time to bring the family back and put the job away. But I would always come home and like, what happened today, Dad? And I would get to talk about the great stories that I had. But then work stays there and home is over here. But being
And
able
you
to
know what?
separate that is important.
That is important to have boundaries.
Mm-hmm,
However, our lives are so complex right now. Many people are working from home, like,
mm-hmm,
the kids are on a summer break. People don't
mm-hmm.
have the ability to have the big separation that's always necessary, but we can mentally decide to put things on pause, put things
Mhm.
into buckets. So
Yes,
this is the bucket that I'm going to deal with this challenge. This is the bucket for this. And then we can do the bucket of work and then put that bucket aside, pick up
yes.
the other bucket. I think
Mhm,
it's when we marry everything and we intertwine, then we don't know where we start off and where we're going to. And I think that's where the challenge really happens for most people. That's why
exactly.
boundaries are so important because they are the anchors that keep us that just surround everything and keep it steady and structural for resilience to happen in our lives. And I think that's really key. Randy, to
Mhm,
those who are listening right now, what would you like to say to that person who is watching? Because many leaders are removed from the daily pressure from our frontline employees, right?
mhm.
They don't see the pressures. The people closest to the customer often carry the emotional challenges. What do leaders understand about the frontline resistance? What do they need to understand about that frontline load? And how can they support or that person who is at the front line who's looking at this and say, hey, I love Randy. What do you say to them?
The thing that I tell them is number one, take a pause and say, what can I do differently to
Mhm.
connect with my people better? And sometimes it's asking them, find that person that you know you can rely on, bring them into your office. Hey, I want to shift some of the things that I'm doing as a leader. I want to support you guys better. What are
Mhm.
some things that I can do to support you better?
Mhm.
That is going to change everything right there. But it's important to listen to what's said. If it's something that, you tend to criticize more than give compliments. So be prepared for whatever's going to come back at you.
Yeah.
Do your best to not get defensive, but
Yeah.
just hear it and then talk. Thank you for sharing that. I really, really appreciate
Absolutely.
that. I'm going to take a look at what I can do to make that happen. Thank you
Absolutely.
so much. Talk to the people and ask them.
Yes.
Once you have a culture like that, where
Mhm.
people feel like they can come in, hey, you looked at me kind of weird today. Is that something I did? Or no, that wasn't you. I just got out of a meeting and I guess
Yeah.
I had that look on my face. No, that wasn't you at all. So now
Absolutely.
that employee is not carrying around all day. Oh my God, did I do something wrong? When
Mhm.
that communication is open and they feel like they can talk to each other, well, that changes everything.
Mhm. Randy, thank you. This has been such a conversation, grounded in a needed conversation right now
Mhm,
as we move into the rapid pace of AI transformation. We
mhm.
need to come back to what makes us human. We need to
Yes.
come back to what makes us feel valued. We need to come back to the resilience anchors so we
Mhm.
stop either burning out or rusting out. We're able to maintain healthy mental health
Yes.
and we are able to have good working relationships because we all need to work. How
Mhm.
do we do it and where we do it is so important. And what we take from it and what it takes from us is becoming more and more important because we need to develop that human aspect as well as the AI. They would
Yes.
need to work. We cannot have one without the other. You cannot
Right.
have a business that functions just on AI. You need human
Mhm.
wisdom in there. And when we build up the human capacity, then we get more benefits from our AI tools. And
Mhm.
organizations need to do that and they need help to do that right now. So I thank you for the work you
Sure.
do
You know what?
for
Can I
work
add
at
one
work.
thing as you talk about AI?
Mm-hmm.
I see a lot of people who are afraid of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think right now it's inevitable. It is going to happen. So it's more
It is.
important to embrace it. And I bring the analogy that 100 years ago, at the turn of the last century, there was this thing called the Industrial Revolution.
Mm-hmm.
And people were saying all these machines are going to take our jobs. And what are we going to do? We're going to starve. My family's going to starve. but they learn to adapt. We are so adaptable. We are, let's see, what word would I use? Resilient.
We are very resilient.
Yes. So we have found a way to use the machines and industry to improve the quality of life and shift the way that we work. And it's going to be the same way with AI. It's important. I
Absolutely.
think it's important to embrace it. Is it going to change things? Absolutely. But we will never lose that human connection and how important that is.
That is so true. And you know, when we think about it, and for those of you who are listening, you know, I talk about the Wiz Resilience platform and the resilience intelligence that's stored up inside of us that we're not tapping into on a daily basis, how important it is for us to really understand what's driving us on the inside, what's building us, what's motivating us, so we can be more intentional in our daily work. And please remember to connect with Randy on his work at work. And my book is coming out August 12th, Cracking the Code on Your Resilience. We are so excited to be able to do the work we do, helping leaders and organizations to build the resilience anchors for the time we're living in. Because like you said, this is just another iteration of our society, and we will be able to work with it if we remain human.
Yes.
That's our biggest struggle
Yes.
is remaining human and building our human capacities. Then we will be just fine. But if we lose what we have, then we're going to be struggling. So let's stay well. Let's stay healthy. I encourage you, do the things you need to do. Take care of yourself. Get your fluid in. Get out for a walk. Enjoy the sunshine. And remember, we will see you next time. Stay tuned. This is What's Happening at Work. Thank you, Randy.
Oh, thank you so much.